Today you're going to learn how to draw jungle leaves and animal footprints, how to use watercolor on thin paper, and how to fix mistakes in your bullet journal, all while creating a Lion King themed bullet journal. I'm Naima, welcome to Naima Creates, let's get into it. So I wanted to start off by creating the iconic scene with Simba, Timon, and Pumbaa walking across the log bridge while the huge moon is behind them and they're just silhouetted by it. So I started off by just using the top of a candle that I have for that perfect circle, lined it up approximately where I wanted it to go on the page, keeping in mind that I still wanted to include the title of the month over top. This is the monthly title page. And then I just added my two lines in parallel to each other, and then because obviously it's a tree so they shouldn't really be completely flat across, I added in a little bit of curves around it so it's still kind of straight but a little bit, natural, because things in nature aren't always perfectly straight up and down. Then I started sketching in the three characters here, and initially I had started with Simba, but he was giving me trouble, so I just ignored that and just jumped over to Timon because he's really small and easy to sort of base it off of. Now technically Simba should be much taller compared to the others, which is why it maybe looks, I was having some difficulty with the measurements here, I think, but I just didn't really want him to be that tall because he would have been almost as tall as the moon if it was to be fully proportional. So I tried to work some things out here, drawing and erasing, as you can see. Starting off when I was doing Timon, though, a good way to break down characters so you don't become overwhelmed is just break them down into small shapes. So okay, his ears are circle, head's a circle, and then okay, his chest is like a bit of a triangle sticking out, his fist is just a circle off of like an L-shaped line, So when you break it down like that, that does help to you do not become overwhelmed by what you're drawing, and instead of thinking in your head, how am I supposed to draw Timon and Simba and Pumbaa, like that's crazy, I can't draw that. Instead of it, just look at it in the smaller shapes, Even Pumbaa there, I'm like, okay, it's just like a round kind of circle. The bottom of the circle dips down a bit further, or semicircle rather. So looking at it that way. Doing a silhouette here was super helpful too, because even what I penciled in, maybe I wasn't fully confident with it. And of course, as I always say, I was looking at a reference photo. I definitely always recommend reference photos. So using the pencil first, then I was able to go back in when I was going in with the pen. I was using a calligraphy pen here. Then I could take another look and see if it was exactly what I wanted before I committed it to paper. And you can also, because once again it's a silhouette, if you draw a little bit smaller, make your lines a little bit more in, so that way if you feel like you want to adjust it, all you have to do is just thicken the shape afterwards. I hope that makes sense if you understand where I'm going with this. So the first pen that I actually used, they're both those Tombow calligraphy pens, if you know what I'm talking about. They have one that's the harder tip and the other one that's the soft tip. I use the hard tip for doing the outlines of the shape just because it's a bit more sturdy and precise, and then I use the soft tip to color inside Simba there. And then for the log going across, of course I wasn't going to use those to color in that whole thing because that would have just taken too long and we ain't got time for that. So I used the Pentel pocket brush pen. As you saw, I just did 3 strokes across and it covered the entire thing. And then because it would still have, when you have a marker and you go over top of it, then you have that line of that bleeding line. So I went and I just kind of did some hatching all the way across the log just to give it a little bit of texture, I guess. Yeah, some log texture. And then I added in some things in the background just to sort of mimic the movie. So here's where the watercolor comes in. So I started off using the blue color, and I added a bit of red. It's intense blue, and I can't remember which red it is right now, but I will maybe insert a title card over top of this after, hopefully. But otherwise, anyways, I just wanted to dull down the blue because it was super bright. It's called intense blue. So I did just tone it down a little bit to make it a little bit of that purplish color. It's not quite purple here because, as you can see, I didn't want to use a lot. So then I went over the whole thing. So because this isn't watercolor paper, you do have to be aware of how much water you're using. So as you can see on the side, I mean, I made the paint a little bit thick, and like I keep running out of paint and having to add a little bit more water to the color just to get it to come through. So you can see that's what's happening right now, right? Is I kind of ran out of paint on the palette, added a bit more water just to try to pull up a little bit more. And that's what you want to do. Is obviously you still need water so that it can flow and blend well, but you don't want so much that it becomes you know, your page becomes completely soaked and then you can't use it because the paper's too thin and becomes, you know, ripped up. So I used some little dredges of that same paint to just fill in the moon. And then, oh my gosh, this is my favorite thing that I got from the dollar store. It's like this like poop emoji, I don't know, vacuum cleaner, like handheld vacuum. So you can just use it, and I use it whenever I'm doing drawing anything to clean up my eraser shaving. So like it's my favorite purchase. Anyways, I digress. So I just have my gold marker here. My gold Sharpie ran out, so actually I got that one at the dollar store, and it seems to work pretty well. I was surprised because normally I just go to Staples for everything, but you know, this worked out. And I tried to mimic the font of Lion King, which is pretty much just like a standard. It almost looks like Times New Roman or something like that, pretty standard. Outlined it in black just to make it pop a bit more from the page. Added a touch of orange in the background underneath the colors just to give it a little bit more dimension. So now on to this page, drawing the jungle leaves. What I first did is take your shape, so a leaf shape, draw that out, right? And then all you have to do is just sort of do little cutouts in each shape to, you can see it there. You do the little cutouts and you just erase the places where you already had the leaf shape around the outside. That allows you to make sure that it's still in the right shape, like it's still the right oval, the right roundness. You're not just, you know, going part way down and then cutting in, cutting back out, and then going down a little bit more, and then it won't really seem even. So I highly recommend just drawing your leaf shape out first and then doing the little cutouts afterwards. So some of them I did just straight triangle, some of them I did round, some of them were somewhere in between. So you know, that's what I'd recommend. You can play around with it. I think when you do it yourself, you'll see what I'm talking about and it'll make more sense. I had flipped back earlier, if you saw, I just flipped back to one of the previous pages that I had made when I was setting up my bullet journal, which is my swatch page, just so I could see what the colors would look like without having to swatch out every single color again. And I chose, these are just my Crayola Supertips markers. I just got them at Shoppers at the pharmacy, and then it turned out that apparently a lot of people use them for bullet journals, so I was surprised with that. I was just like, oh great, pack of Crayola markers, looks good, works for me. So yeah, so I just chose the 3 greens, and there's also a light blue in there, which I thought would be a nice little addition, so added that. And then as you can see, because they are water-based, you can just add a touch of water and the ink will flow. So I'm not adding any additional color here. All I'm doing is dipping my paintbrush right into the water and then picking up whatever ink is already on the page from the Crayolas to blend those colors in. I'm starting off with each shade of leaf just so that each leaf can stay a little bit pure. So start off with, you know, doing all the light green ones and then all the forest green, etc., etc. But then I decided to sort of blend the colors together anyway, so but you know, it's all good. You never know what you're gonna do with art, like, you know, you just discover it as you go along. So what I did there is I just took the marker and like colored a little bit of it out onto the palette. You don't need to use a palette, you can just use like a regular plate or saran wrap over top of something. Scribble out a little bit of the ink, use your paintbrush with a bit of water, and then that's basically your palette. So even if you somehow don't have paint, you can use your markers and you're good to go. I chose this quote, "There's more to see than can ever be seen." I don't know why I chose it. I don't know. It kind of felt like a good reminder that there's a lot of things to explore in this world. So you don't have to feel like, you know, even though you're just doing the same thing day after day, going to work or going to school, whatever it is, there's a lot to see in the world. So you should go and try to see it. That's kind of what I took from it anyways. So on this page, this is going to be my habit tracker page. I kind of wanted to do a little bit of an abstract design, almost like the colors of the forest. So I started off with some browns, moved into some greens, a little bit of red for, you know, maybe some flowers or something, kind of like in the cartoon version anyways of I Just Can't Wait to Be King, when you had like the flower crown all around him. And then a touch of blue for the sky and just some yellows for the brightness of the sun and everything. So, you know, I thought that turned out really good. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. So my plan was to do these little animal footprints going all the way up. So the one on the left is a lion, and all that I did, and I once again recommend, just go online, look up photo references. So I just typed in animal footprints on Google, and I found so many, and then I just chose which ones that I wanted to do. So the second one there is like hooves, you know, just 2 lines straight, and then just little curves on the side. The third one in apparently is a bear. I didn't include the claws just because it was too much to be drawing the claws on top of everything. So when you do it, you just break it down into the small shapes, right? So you can see, is it a wide circle? Is it more of a triangular circle? Or is it, you know, what type of shape is it? Pay attention to the basic shapes. It will help you a lot so you're not overwhelmed when you're doing these things. Then at the bottom, I'm going to just add in the each little habit that I'm tracking. So whether it's something like 15 minutes of exercise or whatever it is that you feel like you want to track, that's where I would put that in just along the bottom. And then as the month progresses, fill in each one with your regular black pen. So now this page is where things got a little bit weird. This is supposed to be my thoughts or brain dump page. And I wanted to do Simba, you know, when Rafiki draws Simba on the tree. And honestly, once I started doing it, it just looked like Shrek. And I couldn't get that image out of my head. I'm like, this is just Shrek. So I kept trying to do little different things and trying to fix it up. And, you know, his nose is a little bit of purplish on it and stuff. And it wasn't working. Then I added in the thing across the forehead. It looked weird. So I used my white gel pen here. That's typically how I fix mistakes, actually. White gel pen, cover it up, go over it. So I jumped over to the next page because waiting for the white gel pen to dry before I smeared back on the brighter shade of like fuchsia that's used on his head. But you'll see, I'll come back to that later. So the next page is the income and budget page. I like to include that just to keep track of how much money am I making, how much money do I still owe on my credit card or whatever other owing things you may have. Fixed expenses, which are things like rent or your cell phone bill, which are the same every month, and then variable expenses, which is maybe like transit or food, you know. So put in how much do you think you're going to spend, what is the end of month total, and just I like to calculate that at the beginning of the month, just so I can sort of get an idea of how much money do I have to play around with. Should I be buying some random stuff, or should I, you know, save my money? Like, do I have money to spend on random things or not? So that's how I use that page. So as you can see on the left, I tried to use a brown pencil crayon to cover over his face a bit to make, because it's on a tree, so I'm like, that'll tone down the color and add the border, but I still hate it. So once again, I'll come back to that and you'll see what I do. For the income and budget page, I typically just add a little drawing in the corner there to fill in the blank space. I decided to do Pride Rock, penciled it in a little bit. Once again, it's just, okay, rectangle, triangle, you know, here's a circle, add a bit of trees in the background. Then I just used my my pen there just to add a little bit of shading. Looked at the reference photo to see where the darker areas were versus the brighter areas. And it's a rock, so I mean, you can't really go wrong. You're just adding in some, you know, some colors on the rock, some light and dark areas, right? Make sure there's some texture. Add in this yellow marker, which for some reason is showing up kind of greenish on my screen, so hopefully it's not showing up like that for you. And I just penned in, you know, a little stick figure of someone holding up some sort of blobby shape, which of course is going to be Rafiki holding up Simba, but it doesn't have to be exact because you're not going to be able to tell anyways from that far of a distance, you know. So this is what I remembered that I had initially wanted to do for my thoughts page was the sun rising. So I just took my yellow marker, made a semicircle shape. It was kind of a little bit wonky, but that was fine because the sun in the sunrise is a little bit, has that kind of like misshapen thing going on. And because I was using the darker orange color around it, that helped. And I didn't pencil anything in here, I just freehanded it. And the bullet journal that I'm using, the Leuchtturm here, it just has the serrated lines. I would recommend waiting for the paper to dry though, because I didn't do that. Thankfully it worked out, but I just wanted to make sure I added that warning in, is don't be impatient, wait for it to dry, or if you are impatient like me, just take your time. I don't want anyone ripping their paper and coming back in my comment section talking about how I ruined their bullet journal, so do not at me. So now switching over to the weekly spread. I always keep this one simple because I want to make sure it's something that I can keep up with throughout the whole month. So I have the calendar at the top. From down the side, I have the days of the week, so that way if something pops up, I can add it in there. And then in the main section, I just add each day by day as I go along. So Monday, I'll add my tasks in, keep going through it, and then I'll do Tuesday, etc., etc. Typically, it brings me to the bottom of the page, no problem. Or sometimes I'll even have extra space, but I prefer to do it that way than creating this huge spread and nothing seems to be, moving along. Okay, so here is the final flip through of my bullet journal. I hope that you've enjoyed watching it, and I hope that maybe it's helped you or inspired you with something that you can do. I hope that everything was explained well. I really did enjoy doing the Lion King theme here. I watched the movie. I don't know if you guys watched the movie. I thought it was fine. I know people really hated it. I liked it, no problem. I mean, I think the cartoon was still better, but not that you came here for my movie reviews, but hey, you're already here, so why not give it to you? Anyways, please, really appreciate it if you could give me a like, maybe subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed already, and I hope that I will see you back here next month. I'm going to be doing Avatar: The Last Airbender, so I will see you then. All right, have a great rest of your day or evening or whatever it is. Bye!